I never want to sugarcoat entrepreneurship. I never want to make it sound like it's the best thing in the world. It's hard. I think entrepreneurship is hard. There's that saying of like, choose your hard. Starting your own business and going all in is hard. Staying in corporate America for the rest of your professional life is hard for some people, for some not. But like, choose your hard, So don't feel any obligation to compare yourself to them because everyone started in a different place. Everyone had different opportunities. That pride of ownership, the feeling of success and accomplishment upon employing others and or just building up your own thing, like that's really the secret sauce and the thing that will make it worth it or not worth it if you're thinking of pursuing it.
Welcome to the Lay of the Land podcast, where we are exploring what people are building in Cleveland and throughout Northeast Ohio. I am your host, Jeffrey Stern, and today I had the real pleasure of speaking with Anna Day. Anna is a multi-unit, multi-brand franchise entrepreneur who has spent the past decade building businesses across Northeast Ohio. Since getting her start in franchising with an Anytime Fitness location back in 2012, she has gone on to own and operate many franchises across several systems including Clean Eatz, Smoothie King, the Vitamin Shoppe, Barrio Tacos and Tequila, and goGLOW, earning national recognition along the way as both Franchisee of the Year and Multi-Unit Owner of the Year. Today, Anna also works as a franchise consultant at the franSPOT, where she helps aspiring entrepreneurs explore and launch franchise businesses of their own. Alongside her entrepreneurial work, Anna is the founder of 24 in 24, an endurance running event where participants run 1 mile every hour for 24 consecutive hours. An event that has grown from a small community fitness challenge into a real institution that has raised more than $3 million for children battling life-threatening illnesses. In our conversation, Anna and I explore franchising as a pathway to entrepreneurship, how the model itself works, why franchising can be such a powerful on-ramp to business ownership, and what she has learned operating multiple franchise brands across different industries. We also talk about her own evolution as an entrepreneur, how she evaluates franchise opportunities today, the importance of building strong teams and of delegation, the story behind 24 in 24, and lots more. I very much enjoyed our conversation together. As you'll hear, Anna is full of passion and knowledge, and I hope you enjoy it as well. Lay of the Land is brought to you and is proudly sponsored by Roundstone Insurance. Headquartered in Rocky River, Ohio, Roundstone shares Lay of the Land's same passion for bold ideas and lasting impact from our community's entrepreneurs, innovators, and leaders. Since 2005, Roundstone has pioneered a self-funded captive health insurance model that delivers robust savings for small and medium-sized businesses. They are part of the solution to rising healthcare costs, helping employers offer affordable, high-quality care while driving job creation and economic growth throughout Northeast Ohio. Like many of the voices featured on Lay of the Land, including Roundstone's founder and CEO Mike Schroeder, Roundstone believes entrepreneurship, innovation, and community to be the cornerstones of progress. To learn more about how Roundstone is transforming employee health benefits by empowering employers to save thousands in per employee per year healthcare costs, please visit RoundstoneInsurance.com. Roundstone Insurance, built for entrepreneurs, backed by innovation, committed to Cleveland. I was really looking forward to this conversation. I was reflecting on all the conversations that I've had so far and realized that I've never actually got to explore franchising, like the business model, the economics, the challenges, opportunities, the overall form of it as entrepreneurship and what it represents.
Yeah.
So I'm super excited to learn from you both about how it works and how you personally came to build your career around it. So yeah, thank you for coming on and sharing your journey and story.
That's so cool. I didn't realize that. Happy to.
Yeah. So we'll have this be the franchise expose and foray.
Perfect.
And like many things, maybe it's just a good place to start at that beginning and how maybe through the lens of franchising, how you came to discover it and what made you think this was the path that you wanted to traverse.
Yeah. I got started really young and I knew nothing about entrepreneurship and neither did my family. And I was a few years out of college and really just unhappy in my corporate, like quote unquote, big girl job. And it was a bummer that I felt that way because I got a very good big girl job. Right. And so I was kind of going through my quarter life crisis, like oh no, I went to school for this. I did it. I got the job. I got the company car. I'm supposed to be on cloud nine. And I was driving, 500 to 1,000 miles a week in an outside sales role. And anyways, regardless, at that time in my life, I was very into fitness, and it was kind of my outlet. I was in a community where I didn't really know anyone, and I was just sort of living at the gym. And I came home for a holiday break and realized, gosh, we don't have any 24/7 gyms up here. Now, given this was a long time ago, now I think every gym's 24/7 now. But anyways, and I just got fixated on this and wanted to bring a 24/7 gym to my hometown. I came from a very middle class family, so I always make the joke. I'm sure my parents really appreciate this, but I always make the joke. I didn't know if we had any money, like meaning my family and my parents and my network. I'm like, do we
Yeah.
have any money? I'm not sure. But I approached my parents. I presented this idea of opening an anytime fitness to them. And I think your lead off of kind of why franchising at that point, gosh, I knew nothing about entrepreneurship. Frankly, neither did they. And so the idea of going all the way from being novice to like opening our own business was very scary. But the thought of going from novice to a franchise system that already existed and had the 24/7 key fob technology and the security system and branding, that felt less scary. It was like a baby jump instead of a big
It's
jump.
more approachable.
It was for us, at least it sure was. And so anyways, my parents ended up leveraging really the entirety of their retirement. It was high risk for us, again, because, just a middle class family that decided to go all in, and I was their operator, minority partner, learned about partnerships, learned about being sad when they get 90 and you get 10, and it was fair. We always kept it business, but it kind of propelled me to wanting to go on my own once I was able to, and they really supported me and cheered me on in that pursuit. So that's kind of how we got started.
That's amazing. That's a real bet on yourself.
It was, it was honestly, it was the coolest thing for my family because my parents got to retire in their 50s. We sold the successful business 9 years later for a strong multiplier of its EBITDA, which was phenomenal for my parents. I got a little bit of that, and it taught me so much. I was the operator, right? I'm so grateful to my parents for betting on me. They're grateful for me because they're like, hey, this worked out pretty well for us too. It was just very mutually beneficial. I got to learn a lot, and it propelled me forward, and they got to, retire earlier than they planned, and it's just the coolest thing ever. So, very grateful on both sides.
Yeah, that's the dream.
Yeah.
Well, a lot of what I want to unpack are some of those learnings that you had along the way. And, we can kind of take it how you've thought about it in reflection, whether that's chronological or more thematic in nature. But I always think it's really interesting to explore what it's like to get started. Like, what
Yeah.
did that first few months feel like operationally? How do you, how do you
Yeah.
actually doing that?
Yeah, it's funny. It was almost like that was the 1.0, and then the 2.0 has been every business since, because my role in that one was all in owner operator. I was training clients at 5 a.m. I was working the office from 11 to 8. I was teaching group fitness classes at night. I was all in, and I had created a running team, and we were at races every weekend, and a powerlifting team, and we were competing. I mean, I had no life, but but it was perfect. I was in that point in my life where I wanted to be all in, and we were a top 1% location. And that's what it takes. It takes that owner to be, I mean, my identity and my business, we were one and the same, and I loved it. It wasn't a bad thing. I was thriving in it. Now at this point in my life, I have more going on, and I wouldn't be in that same mental space, but at the time it was perfect. And so that was sort of the 1.0 version of entrepreneurship, that all in, all day, every day in the business, right? Mentality. But I knew I wanted to scale, and you can't be that times more than one, right? There's only one of you. So if you are the 100% all in, all day, every day owner, then you will always just have one business. And I realized that that's not what I wanted, and so I had to figure out how to be that 2.0 entrepreneur that actually delegates and that employs and that figures out how to do the infamous work on, not in, the business. But that was a different skill set, and frankly a different version of myself as an entrepreneur in the latter part of my entrepreneurial pursuits, which is everything after.
Yeah. And we'll definitely get to explore some of those. I think it would be helpful just to kind of ground the whole conversation, though, for someone who has never really looked under the hood of franchising. Just like, how does franchising work? What does the model look like? What is the relationship between the franchisor and the franchisee? Like, who are all the parties involved? How do the economics work? Just like a little overview of what we're even talking about here.
Oh, baby, I love this. Jeff, I could talk for hours. This is my lane. I don't know. You just tell me, put a hand up and tell me when you need to interject. Yeah, I mean, I I love franchising, right? So it's been my story. It's been my experience. And one thing about humans, we're all creatures of our own experiences. We see the world through our own lens based on what we've been through. And so franchising has just treated me so well. Coming from someone who frankly has no business owning restaurants. I could barely cook eggs. Like what do you mean I own restaurants, right? Like and so that's what franchising allows you to do. You don't have to be creative. You don't have to be a Jeffrey Stern who knows how to create a business. You can be just a regular old person that wants to be an entrepreneur, and you can buy into a system of processes, procedures, vendor relationships, and you just execute, right? And so for me, that has been and is the fit. I've met people that it's totally not the fit. Like they are creative, they have a brainchild, they thrive in creation, and that just never was me. So franchising provides people like me an outlet to and really one of the funniest things about franchising is the franchisor will say no experience required. And you're like, what do you mean I'm opening a roofing franchise? I've never even had it, like I've never used a tool before. So but it truly is possible because they're going to train you, they're going to teach you the type of people you need to employ. And I don't own a roofing franchise, but that's just quite literally how wild it is that you can get into entrepreneurship in industries that you don't have the background in because the franchisor does, and they know how to teach you the skills and the HR components and all the pieces and parts that allow you to operate a successful business. So yeah, it's buying into a proven and existing. Now, proven can vary, franchisor to franchisor. Certainly not all created equal, but it's buying
Yep.
into a system and processes and procedures and relationships that have already been decided for you. So it does very much limit your ability to create your own brand, but it allows you to just take the keys and run with it, which can be a great fit for the right person.
What do you think most people don't understand about the model, or broader misconceptions about the industry?
Yeah. I mean, and I always clarify, every franchisor is not created equal. Like there are definitely strong franchisors, and there are some that are not. And there is a diligence process to deciding if you're going to become a franchisee. But it's so much more than brand awareness. I hear that a lot. Like, oh, you get brand awareness. Oh, I brought multiple units of Smoothie King up here to Cleveland. Nobody had heard of it. One of my competitors in this market is a local competitor with 20 locations. And people said to me, oh man, this other brand is already here. I'm like, Smoothie King has 1,400 locations globally, but they only
Yeah.
knew, brand awareness is such a small part of the value add of investing in a franchise business. You should be getting support from your franchisor. You should have points of contact, whether your questions about marketing, whether your questions about real estate. You should have a person to call. They should have already trialed out, the product and service offerings, figured out their differentiators, negotiated cost savings on things like your payment processing, your digital marketing vendor, cost of goods, if applicable, right? You should be inheriting all of these benefits. They should have technology to determine how big your market needs to be and where you can put this business that you will be successful, not just based on vibes or a gut, oh, I think this would work in my market, but based on real significant and strong data. And so these are all some of the things that you get with franchising. And the most underrated thing you get is a new group of friends and colleagues, right? My best friends as an adult are my fellow franchisees, right? Who do I talk to? I mean, my friends from high school and college, I love them. I see them twice a year, follow them on social media. My fellow franchisees, we text every day, every week, right? We're in this together. And even though we are independent business owners, we're running the same businesses. So we get to bounce off each other. And it's like the coworker environment, but in a franchise system. So it's a really cool value add to entrepreneurship and franchising.
Yeah. And just at the highest level, how does the business model work?
Okay, yeah. So if I buy into a franchise, I'm going to pay a license fee. It's an upfront fee, basically buying the rights to operate their brand, right? To operate as them, identify as them. And then from there, they are going to train me, potentially train my team, and all initiatives, will come down the pipeline from franchisor to franchisee. And then our job there is to execute on what we are taught, and a percent of the revenue we make goes back to franchisor. That's the royalty structure. So that's kind of the biggest hang up people have is, oh, I don't want to give 7% of my revenue forever back to the parent company, but they should be earning their keep. You should feel that that 7% is so valuable because of the R&D that they do to keep your business relevant, of the marketing support that they're going to provide and the assets that come down the pipeline that you just get to implement, and you just get to put up on the wall that you didn't have to brainstorm and create and test, et cetera, right? So you're paying a fee for them to keep you relevant, keep you thriving, and you just have to operate. So that's sort of the model at large, if that answers your question.
No, super. Yeah. And I think we can try and weave it back in a little bit to your story. As you kind of outlined it in this transition from 1.0 to yourself as a 2.0, franchisee
Yeah.
entrepreneur. I mean, I thought one of the interesting things about your story is that I don't know if you followed what people might assume is the traditional franchise playbook where you pick one brand and scale to many locations, and you kind of did something pretty different. So I just kind of want to understand how that
Yeah.
evolved, because I think people might imagine, just having heard what they've heard so far, that the whole thing is like a lot of Anytime Fitness stores, but
Right,
it's
right.
many different brands.
Yeah, psycho. Yeah, I've been a franchisee in 6 franchise systems plus an independent concept that I did do. So that's crazy. I always joke because I'm also a franchise consultant. So I help people looking to get into franchising. And I always joke with my candidates, like, don't do what I did. And diversification is smart. I will say my second franchise was Clean Eatz, which is a healthy meal plan restaurant. I still own 2 locations, love the brand. We're a cafe restaurant and a prepackaged meal plan concept. When COVID hit, my gym, 0, no revenue, like Clean Eats really thrived because people weren't going out to eat. They were kind of nervous to go into busy grocery stores. So they were doing a lot of the prepackaged meals, right? So I will give diversification that. I'm so
Yeah.
glad that I wasn't just 3 Anytime Fitnesses when COVID came. I'm glad I had Anytime Fitness and, the restaurant model. But every franchise, I don't want to say it's like a job because that's not true. But, you're going to have calls, right? You're going to have a marketing call. You're going to have a corporate check-in call. You're going to have twice annual audits from your franchisor, conferences, initiatives coming down the pipeline, right? So as I stacked brand after brand after brand after brand, my bandwidth got wildly zilched, and so I realize it probably is much more brilliant to open 1 to 2 franchises and then build an infrastructure beneath you, right? 5, 6, 8, 10 locations. Therefore you can have a regional manager overseeing your territory manager and then you, the owner, right? Makes sense. But I just kept going brand to brand because I was just really obsessed with investing in my own community. And I wanted to keep
Mm.
doing it. You can't put 3 of the same brand in one community. So I put an Anytime Fitness here. I put a Clean Eatz here. Then I put multiple Smoothie Kings here. Then I opened a bar here. Then I put a beauty franchise here. I was so fixated on my market, which benefited me because those customers, I built a relationship once. I get to earn their dollars multiple times, but very challenging. And I would not recommend it. I would recommend less diversification, frankly. But yeah, so that's been my path.
Yeah. But at the same time, I'm sure it provided you a whole lot of insight and perspective, getting to see how, to your point about, first of all, not all of them being created equal, just the differences between different franchise organizations and how they operate, kind of best practices applied across your whole portfolio. I mean, how varied was the experience working with all those different brands?
Yeah, that's a good question. It greatly varied, right? I will say though, I've had really great experience. One thing that people forget about with franchising is your franchisor is only successful if the franchisees are successful. It feels like because they take money out of your checking account once a week in the form of royalties, it feels kind of like they're not sometimes franchisees in the system will feel like they're not your friend because they take your money. But remember, we have to always remember that we are partners. The franchisor, i.e. parent company, and us, the locally owned independently owned franchisees, we are on the same team. And so I have always really felt that for the most part, a couple little things here, there with my franchisors. And I've been in very mature systems, Anytime Fitness, Smoothie King, Vitamin Shoppe, and I've been in brand new systems, goGLOW, Clean Eatz. I don't necessarily think that the mature versus new is it correlates with the quality of the like relationship and support. Actually, I could even battle that sometimes. New is like my Clean Eatz founders and I, we text, like, that's a relationship that I built because I was one of their first 20 franchisees. That, you know when you're franchisee number 1500, you probably don't ever get the founder's phone number, and you probably don't really help mold and mend the brand, right? So yeah, overall I've had good experiences, but they do vary greatly, and it's in different ways, right? But I've really enjoyed the opportunity to work with a bunch of different types of franchisors.
Lay of the Land is brought to you and is proudly sponsored by Cerity Partners. As a wealth management firm, Cerity Partners shares Lay of the Land's same dedication to serving local business owners, and the Cerity Partners Cleveland team understands the challenges that entrepreneurs and founders face here in Cleveland, Northeast Ohio, and beyond. Wealth comes with complexity and increased demands on time and resources. It is easy to become overwhelmed. Cerity Partners clients benefit from a unified team of local specialists who coordinate across both business and personal needs. With Cerity Partners' commitment to transparency and putting clients' needs first, complexity can become clarity. To learn more, please visit CerityPartners.com or call 216-464-6266 today. Cerity Partners, proud to be recognized as one of the top financial advisory firms in the country. Yeah. I'm very interested in, you mentioned performance at the 1%, level differentiates your ability to operate a brand at that level, and why, what are the actual things you're doing at that point to achieve that level of outcome, and how do you scale that across different brands? As you mentioned, it sounded like it requires a lot of in the business kind of work. And so just how you thought about across your entire portfolio and kind of horizontally within the brands themselves, how you thought about that.
Yeah, this is a cool tidbit. This is a great question that you pose. And I remember when I was trying to go from 1.0 to 2.0, Anna, and I didn't see the path, right? Because I'd been all in all day, every day, knew every member's name, living and breathing the brand, driving a car with the logo wrapped around it. I got tattoos of the brand on me, literally multiple, like that degree of all in. So how could I see a path where I'm not, how could I grow, right? Because there's only one of me. I can't be all of this for my second, third, 100th franchise. And I met with my accountant, shout out Bob Zappatelli. And I said this to him. I said, Bob, you don't get it. Like, I'm in there, like the brand won't be as successful without me. And he goes, you're right. And I think I was kind of expecting some degree of like, no, you don't get it, Anna. Like, I guess I thought he would push back. And he goes, no, you're right. He's like, for sure, it won't make as much money without you. And I was like, okay, well, then I can't grow. He's like, why can't you grow? I'm like, because you just said if I don't do all these things, I won't be as successful. And he said, you get to pick your path. Do you want to own one business that is operating at 100% of its capacity because you pour your heart and soul into it every single day? Or do you want to open 10 businesses that operate at 80% of their capacity? He's like, they will not operate at 100% without you doing all the things you're doing. He's like, I'm not fighting you on that. That's a fact. He said, but you can't grow like this. So you pick your path. Do you want to be that owner that's so full of pride of that business you've had for 50 years and you've been sitting inside the four walls of it for 50 years and because that's an owner. That's an entrepreneur right there. Makes you think of like those old grocery shops where you see the owner, he's like 85 and he still shows up for work every day because he just loves his business and he's so proud. Yep. That's what it makes you think of, but that I didn't want to be that. I wanted to grow, right? I wanted to have a portfolio. And so that provided me almost like permission to not be 1.0, 1.0 Anna forever. And it's still okay. And so that is the mentality I brought forward. I have phenomenal businesses. I have phenomenal leaders underneath me. Do they excel to the degree that I would if I were them? Honestly, sometimes I think they're better than me, but but they're not the owner. So in theory, if I were in there doing what they're doing, maybe I'd be able to give it that extra couple percentage points, but at what cost, right? My work-life balance, my ability to grow, my ability to do other things. And so it's a really cool perspective that is probably relatable for any entrepreneur, franchise or otherwise. So that's kind of been my mentality.
Yeah. How did you think about and why did you want to start your own concept?
My independent brand? Or, oh, okay. So even that, I can't give myself too much credit. I was approached to be the operator of a concept that had been the brainchild of someone else. And I did chip in. He gives me credit that I'm not sure I really deserve. I'm literally not a creative person at all. So we opened a bar in downtown Willoughby called the Yard on Third. It is pretty cool. Had 2 phenomenal seasons. I will say between season 1 and season 2, I did a ton of work. There was a lot of work that needed to
Yeah.
be done to the infrastructure, had to bring out, an architect, really honestly redo it. So, but after 2 years, thankfully we were very, very successful. So I was able to get a nice exit from that business. And so even for me, it was sort of like a franchise because I really was actually coming into someone else's. And so if I have to be honest, I've really never created anything myself.
That feels like it's got to be not true and very modest. Appreciate it.
I mean,
So I kind of love the motivation, if you will, of building what you wanted to see in your own community.
yeah.
I mean, is that literally what you felt was motivating you?
Yeah. I felt like I had a good ability to observe and acknowledge opportunities. So all the brands I have here, Anytime Fitness, we had no 24/7 key fob access fitness at that time. Clean Eatz, we had no healthy prepackaged meal plan concept at that time. Smoothie King, when I opened my Smoothie Kings here, we didn't have any of the nation's top providers in this category. We didn't have Smoothie King, Jamba Juice, Tropical Smoothie, Planet Smoothie, Robex. None existed in Menor, despite us being a large market, 50,000 plus population market. So I felt like I truly identified a hole in the market, if you will. Even my custom spray tan beauty brand, there's been no standalone beauty player in that segment, that niche segment of the industry. So, I do keep eyes and ears on my community. And I do feel like when I bring something here, it's because I notice that there's a hole, or there's an opportunity. And there's always competition. I don't want to make it sound like, oh, I can't open a business if I want to open a sandwich shop because there's other sandwich shops. I always tell people you got to carve out your stake of your share of the market and then you grow it by being a good operator and having a nice place, keeping it clean, good staff. So, but for me, I have really 2 things: found business models that I felt like the community needed. And secondly, I've really enjoyed filling vacancies in my community. I've filled over 10 vacancies, brick and mortar, physical, commercial vacancies in my community through my entrepreneurial efforts. And I like that. I like kind of beautifying. Even when I sell it to another buyer. Beautiful. It's still there. It's gorgeous. It's a franchise business that, is hopefully going to continue to thrive. So even when I don't stay, because I like to buy, I like to build, I like to sell. I'm always open to anything, right? So doesn't mean I have to have it forever for me to feel like it's fun to beautify the community in that way.
Let's talk about selling then. Ultimately, you did successfully sell part of your portfolio. When did that make sense? Why did you want to do that? How did you approach that whole process?
Yeah, the math's got a math, right? You know what you put into it, you know what your cash flow's been, you know what your debt is if you still have any. And so it's kind of, first off, it's a numbers game, right? You know what the offer would need to be to make sure that you're getting out in a pretty place. You don't want to just build it for 700,000, only make 100,000 in EBITDA and then sell it for 700,000. It's just not worth it, right? So you got to make sure you've given it enough time to grow the EBITDA. That bar example, we just were 0 to 100 business. Every once in a while, you get lucky with one of those. So we didn't need the 3-5 year trajectory for me to be able to say, "Ooh, it's time to exit. I got a good opportunity here with a nice multiplier." So yeah, it's been different for each business depending on when this podcast launches. I'm actually selling my 2 Smoothie Kings after just shy of a 6-year run. I've had QSR. A lot of people like to invest in QSR, so I've been hit with, hey, a lot of buyers for a long time. And so what I do is whenever I get an offer, when I'm not ready, I just keep that phone number. So when I am ready, I got a nice little, so I've never listed with a broker. I've never had to market my sales. I've always known who my buyers will be, which is a big thing in franchising. Another perk. There's a bunch of people that already know how to run your business, right? So it's very easy for them to acquire, or frankly, for you to acquire when you're ready. So anyways, I send out my message when the numbers are number and the math is math. And I say, hey, I think maybe it's time. Here's the price it would take. Let me know. And I was fortunate enough to get kind of a little bit of a bidding war going on. I'm going to get a nice exit and they'll figure out what the hell I'm doing next. So I don't know if that answers your question. It's really, it's so dependent on the unique business and what the investment was, what your cash flow has been, what your multiplier of EBITDA will be. Do you need to give it more love? It's not ready yet. You need to get that number bigger. Do you have that or not? So there's just so much to factors into it, but I'm a numbers person. I love numbers. I love spreadsheets. That's probably I'm not creative, I'm math brained, right? So that's my lane. And so I love to do projections and figure out when and how much I can sell for and when it's going to make sense. So that's all part of the fun.
So when you're starting to think about what the hell to work on next, I mean, clearly you weren't like, this whole franchising thing, not for me anymore. I mean, you clearly have a real passion for it. How did you approach? I mean, I feel like really there could have been two paths that feel somewhat obvious. One would be like, you could try and start your own, you could do more, or what you've opted to do, which is, help others get into the business of franchising, and just how you thought about why you wanted to do that, and just building a business around the business of franchising. It's kind of meta.
Yeah. Yeah. So when I got, what was it, 7 brands wide, and I also, of course, have my charity event, which is for about 3 months of the year, feels like a full-time job. So when I got kind of that wide, my bandwidth really, really, really struggled. And it was just apparent that I could not keep it up. And so that's when sat down, really looked at everything and sold about half my portfolio, got down to 6 franchise businesses. And, uh, and at that point, which was like 2023, I I kind of I don't know, my family just really laughs at me because they're like, "You are so crazy," but I felt like I had great managers in all my franchises, and they were really running them, right? So here I am in my 30s just kind of obsolete, right? Like, I could build more, but that takes time, and I had great people beneath me, and they were doing well, and I was proud of them, and I just didn't I wasn't really, so I'm like, if I wanted to pour more of myself into my businesses, I'm going in and making smoothies, or I'm going in and I like to do that, and I still do work in my businesses, not that I work once every other week, so I always joke I'm not doing the Lord's work
Yeah.
out here, but I keep a foot in the door. So anyways, I kind of recognized that pouring more of myself into my franchise businesses was something that I could probably replace myself with a 17-year-old that might do better than me anyways. And so I wanted to do something that was really more tapping into 15 years of experience in franchising. I always joke it's the only thing I know. And so I was trying to figure out how I could do that, and I stumbled upon franchise consulting, which is not something that I created, but I do have my own business doing it, and it's where I get the opportunity to help people honestly just learn about entrepreneurship. A lot of times my candidates are like I used to be, never been entrepreneurs. Learn about franchising specifically if it's the right lane for them. And then what does that look like? If the project cost is X, what do I have to actually fund of that project cost? And how do I evaluate a franchise, and what industry or model makes sense for me based on my market or my financial preferences, et cetera. So it's kind of fun. I get to work with people on exploring all that. And then sometimes it works and they buy a franchise license. I've placed dozens of candidates in dozens of brands, and that's a thrill. At other times, they're like, "Oh, actually, this is kind of scary. Maybe not, or they just don't, this is not the right fit." But anyway, so that's kind of why I got into it. My quarter life, oh, wait, no, I think now I'm at a midlife crisis. I was a quarter life. A midlife crisis, just kind of wanting to get into something different. And I'm still going to franchise. It's still my thing.
Yeah.
I'm opening more units, but that's my other kind of passion thing that I do.
So what does the process look like? I come to you, I'm somewhat interested, I want to be an entrepreneur. I don't know where to start. How do you walk someone like me through that?
Yeah. So I kind of always start with like your why, tell me why, like what brings you to the call, right? Kind of get to know people. And what we're looking for there is not just what we call like pain. If your only why is I hate my job, or your only why
Yeah.
is, unfortunately, that's probably not, and I'm not saying I wouldn't work with someone who says that, but it can be indicative of the fact that it may not be the right fit, because really entrepreneurship is for entrepreneurs. And whether that means that you used to like doing the lemonade stand at the end of your driveway when you were a kid and that's the last time you revisited, but there should be some degree of like an entrepreneurial itch, or like a spirit of like I wanted to be a business owner. Like I think that is actually like the magic piece of this. Like you can't just want to do it for the numbers. You can't just want to do it for money. It shouldn't be just diversification of my asset portfolio and otherwise I don't care at all. I just don't think that that's enough to really enjoy it. It can work for you, but then you're like, "Oh, I own a business. It would have been easier to put my money in the stock market," right? And so you got to have that like, excitement about it. It should feel exciting, I think is part of it. So anyways, so kind of uncover the why, and then we talk through that in a lot more length. So my job, first of all, is to get to know you. What what would you be looking for in a business? We talk quite a bit about net worth versus project cost and ensuring that we're, and risk tolerance, because those work in tandem. Market of preference, of course. And then ultimately, my job is to bring you some franchise brands that I believe align with your core values and your core preferences. And then I help you explore those concepts, understanding what their documentation means and what the process looks like. So I'm just kind of your neutral third party advocate. I always tell my candidates they can call me, text me, whatever. We keep it fun and just answer your questions. You just have somebody along on the ride with you. And the best part about franchise consulting, and I hope this doesn't sound too much like a commercial, but the coolest part about it is it's free from candidates because franchisors pay consultants. They say, hey, thanks for bringing us Jeffrey Stern. We're so pumped that he's opening 3 Smoothie Kings. Here's a commission. So I'm compensated, but exclusively by franchisors when and if my candidates do find the right opportunity. So people who work with me don't have to pay me anything, which is very low ask on their part, which is kind of fun.
Yeah, that is a nice alignment of incentives.
Yeah.
With that in mind, though, to the point about all the brands not being created equal again, like how do you discern, how do you evaluate different franchise opportunities for folks and do that kind of alignment of core values with the right opportunities? I'm sure, not everyone wants to do the window company versus, the smoothie company right? There's quite a diversity of actual practical things people could.
Yeah, I'll admit that has been a big learning. Like I represent hundreds of brands and I always tell my candidates like, hey, I know 5% about 300 brands. You're going to know 100% about one. So there will be a point in this process where you have more knowledge about that one given brand you're doing diligence on than I will have. And so we will flip flop on our degree of expertise on that one brand. But what I will continue to bring to you is an understanding of how to evaluate that opportunity as a third party. So sometimes, at some point in the process, my candidates will ask me a question about the brand that they're looking at. And I'm like, you know what? I actually don't know that answer. So you're gonna need to ask your franchisor. But with that said, there are things that I can do on the front end. There are variables you can look at to kind of benchmark a franchise based on, how new they are. Does that matter to my candidate? If they are more mature, closure rate. That's a data point in the franchise disclosure documents of brands. That's something that I think is important. And if I don't have the opportunity to look at it myself, I will educate my candidates on how to ensure that they do, because we don't have access to every FTD on this side of the table. But so there's these little things that we can use. And then the other cool thing about what I do is I'm in a national network and it's very collaborative. And so I get a lot of support there too. People have been doing this for 20, 25 years and know a lot about brands. So, and then last thing is it's a lot of continued education every single week. Several hours of learning about franchise brands and continuing to stay abreast of what's out there. What are their differentiators? Why are they so great? We have 2 week-long conferences annually that all day, every day, from breakfast to dinner, networking and learning from franchisors to ensure that we know what's out in the market and what brands are strong and what parent companies are strong and all those things. So it's hard. We can never be a guarantee, in the brands that we show, but we can certainly help our candidates understand how to do their best diligence to get to hopefully the right opportunity.
When you're at those conferences and thinking about the market writ large, where is this industry going? Like, how has it evolved? What are the trends? Like, has it changed at all? Or is it basically the same? I actually don't know the history or, anything.
Yeah. It's so funny. This question reminds me. My mom once showed me this, and it was like all these newspaper articles, and it was like from the 20s, the 30s, the 40s, the 50s, all the way through current time. And all of them were saying like the youth aren't motivated, or the young people aren't like what they used to be. They're not hard workers like they used to be. And so what it's showing is just basically like, we all think about it through the current lens. Like we're like, oh, Gen Zers, they don't, but every generation has said this about their respective youth for all of time, right? And so you're like, oh, maybe I'm just a grumpy, 40-year-old. And so anyways, you're probably wondering where the hell I'm going to bring a parallel here. But with franchising, it's funny. Like you'll hear, oh, franchising is less this or it's more that, or it's like some of these kind of like very like putting it in. But I've been hearing those same things, that it's growing more that. And certainly there's some data that will indicate, certain segments have huge growth trajectories, et cetera. But it's funny. I think franchising will always be the right fit for the right person. There will always be a really, really great brand that's coming up, a new emerging brand opportunity. There will always be brands that are kind of in the latter ends of their life cycle that probably aren't the best ones to invest in. I think there will always be a lot of that. And then everyone is a creature of their own life experience. So where they're at with franchising really depends on them, if that makes sense. So I kind of feel like it's I don't know if that answers your question, but that's the way I look at it because people will be like, oh, it's going this way or it's going that way. And I'm like, I heard that 5 years ago. I heard that 10 years ago. I heard that 15 years ago in different ways from different people about different industries, about different parts of franchising. And so, or even, sorry, last thing, but even like the grandeur, like, oh, small business ownership is no longer, going to be a thing. Like everything's going big business. Like the opportunities for small business owners aren't there like they used to be. Like some of those like general themes that we hear, but then sure enough, there are still small business owners 10 years later, and so I don't know if that answers your question, but that's kind of how I feel about it is that it'll be different for anyone in their various experiences at any given time.
For sure. Maybe like a different angle to approach that question would be like, when you think about maybe where it's going, what are you excited about how the industry might change? I mean, I think I hadn't really thought about it as like a ramp to entrepreneurship generally, but it clearly is. But just like looking forward, what is exciting to you about the opportunity and how you think it might change, if at all?
Yeah, I mean, I think that I would love to see franchising be I guess I would love to see more education for people on how to get into it, right? And how to because I think it is a good stepping stone. There are people that do want to open their own businesses, but you do learn a lot about entrepreneurship through franchising. So even if it is your first business, right? Even if it is a stepping stone business. But other than that, there's nothing necessarily that stands out to me as like what I perceive is going to be different in the future, besides the fact that hopefully franchisors just continue to learn about what works for their franchisees, how to build successful infrastructures. I know there's a lot of collaboration between franchisors to, the very, very successful ones. What worked? How did you create foundational success for your franchisees, et cetera? So, I hope that the industry just continues to thrive and I believe that it will. I think it's just a really, really great way to get into entrepreneurship.
When you reflect on the 1.0, the 2.0, if now is 3.0
Tired dotto.
professional version of yourself, what stands out as the biggest earned wisdom that you have from those chapters, maybe respectively, the hardest lessons learned?
And this kind of brings back to like that newspaper article about things people always say. Like people always say, "Oh, you can't count on people. Oh, I don't want to have a labor heavy business because people suck. Employees are the worst." My biggest learning is that is. Are we allowed to swear on this podcast, Jeffrey?
Sure, yeah.
Okay, great. My biggest takeaway is that's bullshit. I think that you having bad people underneath you or people that are inconsistent or they blah, 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 blah is a bigger reflection on you as an owner than it is on anything else. I am not saying I'm the best owner ever. I'm far from it, but I have had the same managers at all of my businesses since the day I opened. And I don't know what my secret sauce is per se, besides I guess just like I give a damn and I hope they're okay. And if they tell me they're stressed out, I say, how can I help? And I don't ever I've never had anyone work more than a 40-hour work week. That's pretty rare in the restaurant industry. A lot of managers are expected to work these 55, 65-hour weeks. I don't believe in it. I think you're going to burn out. I'm going to lose you. I'm very big on work-life balance. My managers can work as little as 32 hours. I have a structure like that where they can ebb and flow, but I have great people and I've been very successful. And my role is if I'm making money, they're making money. So it's not black and white profit sharing from a legal standpoint with equity share, which I've been open to, but there's repercussions for the recipient of said sweat equity. And so it just hasn't made sense, but I will bonus them out based on the profit of the business. And I have money. Unfortunately, I love money, right? So I'm not saying I'm like the most generous person in the world. I'm just saying at the end of the day, if I have another 40,000 in my bank account and someone worked their butt off for it, I am lucky to give them a percent of that because I get to keep the rest, right? And so, that's kind of been my mentality. And so I think my biggest learning is if you aren't going to be the all-in 1.0 person that grinds and loves it and breathes it and lives it, and you're going to be this person, then you need to work on your skill set, caring about humans and finding good people. Now, not everyone is a great employee. I'm not saying that you get bad ones and you're a bad owner, but when you find the good people, how do you treat them? How do you cultivate their talent and how do you tell them how much they mean to the degree where you do retain them and you get to thrive together? Because that is my biggest brag. If there's anything I'm going to brag about myself, I am very proud that I've never lost a manager. I've always kept my people. My people are my people, and that is the secret. That's the secret to entrepreneurship is your people.
People. It does always come back to people.
Mm-hmm.
You mentioned success. What does that mean to you? How has it changed over time? what do you find is motivating you now relative to, what was motivating you before?
Man, that's a tough question. That is a work in progress because unfortunately there's a meme out there that's like, "Oh, I do amazing things." Oh, like one bad thing happens. Someone leaves a 1-star Google review. Me, life is over, everything's failing, light it on fire, like I'm a loser, like, and then it says like you like win a Nobel Peace Prize and it's like, okay.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, I resonate with that. Like I can have an incredible like last month I was the number 1 consultant in my national network. It was a huge
Wow.
deal. It really was.
Congratulations.
Thank you. Unfortunately, though, just came and went like that, right? And meanwhile, I'm having anxiety because of one little I forgot to download the prom package for my beauty franchise and get it like the dumbest little tiny nitpicky thing. And so this is my biggest opportunity. Probably need a therapist, not you, Jeffrey, for me to talk through this with. But I really wanna work on allowing success to actually feel like a thing for me and, like, and not feel like the goalpost is ever moving, and, I think this is probably a big thing with a lot of entrepreneurs is if you hit this, you gotta hit that, and then you gotta get to that, and you gotta get to that, and it's just you're chasing, and you're chasing, and you're chasing. I really wanna feel like I've gotten the thing and now just kind of sit with it, enjoy it, and I'm consciously and actively trying to work on that because otherwise there will always be a goalpost, and it's not like the best way to live, but it is a challenge, right? And so it's a hard question. I've been very successful, very, very successful, especially at my age. And it's really cool. And so have you, Jeffrey, and it's really cool. But I bet you would agree with me that it's kinda hard to just sit in that and then reevaluate what success means from here.
It definitely is. Yeah. I think an angle also to think about it would be, I don't know, I think about this too. Like what is the impact that you want to have looking back from a place of retrospect?
Yeah. From a for-profit economic standpoint, I've always been kind of proud about, like, building up this community, just this Northeast
Yeah.
Ohio, little suburban community, and I think that that's been a really cool thing. I also and I know we've talked about this, I created a charity event in the
Yeah, yeah.
midst of all of this, and,
Let's talk about it.
yeah, yeah, it's kinda cool. It's my other big tattoo. I really like tattoos apparently. Um, I created this little running event back when I owned the gym. You run 1 mile on the hour, every hour for a calendar day. So it's not like you run 5 miles and then you take 5 hours off. You run a mile at noon, at 1 PM, at 2 PM. So it's this little staccato running experiment, which in theory is easy because it's 1 mile at a time, but then you're doing it at midnight and 1 AM and 2 AM and, and it starts to really compound on itself both mentally and physically and emotionally. And so it's pretty hard, actually. I've had people say it's harder than a marathon because the marathon, they know what to expect. They go run the 26 miles, and this is 24 miles in these little tiny baby increments. Other people have said it's way easier than a marathon. So, but regardless, I created it, frankly, as a physical challenge. Like I owned a gym. I was trying to think of something cool and hard to do. And I guess I'm like a little embarrassed to admit, like, I didn't really, my energy was more about the physical, like it's just a hard thing. Cause this is back when I was like a fitness person. And and the fact that we would raise some money at that time, our first year, it was a child battling leukemia who's still an amazing member of our community that is now a grown up, which is crazy. So we raised money for his family, but the raising money for the family was like my afterthought, right? The physical challenge was my brainchild, right? And then it has just, whoa, 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 evolved. And I've realized, going back to your question, like, what impact do you want to make? I've kind of realized, oh my gosh, I have an obligation to keep this event alive because it is a powerhouse. Now it's a whole, we were at the Cleveland Guardian Stadium one year, literally a professional baseball stadium for 24 hours with 500 runners. And the event sells out in like 24, 48 hours now, and we've raised over $3.2 million for children battling life-threatening illnesses in the state of Ohio. So it's just gone from this teeny
It's
tiny
amazing.
little thing to this like powerhouse event. And so that's sort of where, when I think about my impact, like that's sort of where I put a lot of I'm like, okay, all the for-profit stuff I do, great. That's all in that bucket. But I make enough money on this side where I can do this because I'm a volunteer. I've never paid a salary in this endeavor. I get to put myself into this because of what this does, and that allows me to have this, like, really, really cool impact, at least if nothing else on Northeast Ohio. So that's sort of my baby.
Yeah, it's amazing. I think right there you've challenged your own self-perception that you're not creative. That sounds pretty creative to me.
That was my one go. I had one hit, a lot of strikeouts, one home run. That was my I'll give you that. That's true.
It's something creative. What back to the franchise thing for a second.
Yep.
What franchises are like most aspirational, inspirational, like that you find yourself inspired by? They're just like operating. They're like the 1% of the 1% of franchise operations.
Yeah. That's a good question. I was really impressed what Crumble Cookie did. I know now they're kind of more in the plateau part of their life cycle, but the way that they grew, the impact that they made, they went from unknown to wildly cult-like following in a very quick period. That's an example. And franchisees did very well. Crumble, small square footage footprint, small build out, cult-like following. That was a thrill in franchising. And again, now I think it's in a more mature, I think a very safe place. I don't think anyone's but I'm sure I would not be surprised to hear that average franchisee EBITDA in that system is down year over year. Not claiming that to be true. I don't know that for factually. But that was a thrill of a ride. I love the fitness franchises. Anytime Fitness, same thing when we had our rise to the top. And then again, just as happens in the life cycle of a brand, more competitors, cheaper competitors. But in Anytime Fitness is, and it's still a great brand, but in their glory days, that brand was really something special. There's always kind of a new one coming up. I'm a huge Orange Theory. I love Orange Theory. I think that methodology was brilliant. Smaller square footage, class environment. So I do kind of, admittedly, because I've been a fitness franchisee. My brain automatically goes to those brands. But there's also really great brands in the service industry. Uh, oh my gosh, the Paul Davis franchise that I can't unbelievable success that franchisees have had in restoration of all industries, right? And so there's so many different cool ways that you can make money in franchising and just in general, right? That you don't think about. And so that's been a lot of fun getting just exposure to that. I placed a few candidates in an up and coming franchise called Taste Buds Kitchen that I really love. It's an enrichment franchise for cooking, BYOB for adults and kids, summer camps, parties, and that's a really cute model created by a Harvard grad, woman owned, women founded franchise that I love. So it, I'm just like so many people have their own, hobbies and interests. My husband loves cars. I love franchises. I love learning about
Yeah.
business models. I love learning about brands. I love learning about brand stories. So I'm a little bit of a kind of a junkie on that, and it's fun for me. So it's a hard question because there's just so many different things out there.
Could you franchise philanthropically, like with 24? I guess that's kind of local chapters. Have you thought about like what that would look like for 24 and 24?
Uh, Jeff, I should be doing that. Yes, I did. One time I met with somebody
Because
listening to this podcast.
it's an amazing concept, and I've seen all these like fitness things kind of blow up.
Yeah, I know. Someone listening to this podcast who wants to be my advisor in that endeavor, call me. I met with an attorney once. It was actually pretty defeating. I remember he was like, "What would stop someone from just doing this themselves?" I'm like, "Well, we've created a brand reputation. I have a playbook. We have, we've created a logo and a brand identity and et cetera, blah, blah, blah." But it was sort of a defeating conversation. It probably wasn't the right person for me to be talking to. But the other part of it is honestly, I think just the fact that, like I mentioned, I am a volunteer. And so just the idea of growing it in that way I've thought about it and then I just get so intimidated and overwhelmed and I just
Yeah,
always,
yeah.
but I mean, certainly like why there could be a 24 and 24 event in every state in the country raising money for that or that state's local children battling life-threatening illnesses. And, the running community, they are an incredible community. They are hardcore. Runners are a different breed. And so I know runners all around the country will support and will come out in droves to support it if it ever grew in that capacity. And maybe one day it will. Maybe when I retire from my for-profit world, I could put all my eggs in that basket because I think that you're onto something. And I certainly understand franchising. So, why couldn't I figure out a way to do it in the nonprofit sector? So maybe one day.
Yeah. Cool. We've covered a lot of different ground here. I'm curious, is there something in reflection on your own journey, professionally or otherwise, or completely unrelated to what we've talked about that you feel is like important that you would want to incorporate?
I think that's a great question. I think of some of the things I say all the time when I'm working with candidates that are looking into entrepreneurship. I think that I guess my overall overarching, assuming that the listeners here are entrepreneurial listeners and are or maybe are thinking about it, like I think my kind of thing is that I never want to sugarcoat entrepreneurship. I never want to make it sound like it's the best thing in the world. It's hard. I think entrepreneurship is hard, and there's that saying of like choose your hard. Like starting your own business and going all in is hard. Staying in corporate America for the rest of your, professional life is hard for some people, for some not. But like choose your hard. So I think kind of just, when you see other people in their entrepreneurial paths, first of all, don't feel any obligation to compare yourself to them because everyone started in a different place. Everyone had different opportunities, and potentially different financial opportunities, right, than you. And so try not to do that and try to just really focus on back to that question you asked me where I talked about like that magic. Like, does the idea of business ownership, entrepreneurship, is it a thrill for you? Do you get that like kind of excited like feeling? That's who should be doing it, and I think that that's something that I would just double down on. I guess maybe if in closing remarks, is just leaning into that and then figuring out the outlet for it, whether again, it's creating your own business from scratch, buying or acquiring an existing business, or pursuing perhaps a franchise and building it out from scratch in that capacity. But that's the piece, right? It shouldn't just be about money. It shouldn't just be about ROI. It needs to be the pride of ownership, this feeling of success and accomplishment upon employing others and or just building up your own thing. Like that's really the secret sauce and the thing that will make it worth it or not worth it if you're thinking of pursuing it.
Yeah. Beautifully said. That's a perfect closing remark. Well, I'll hit you then with some closing questions, and then we can wrap it up. But I mean, normally we talk about hidden gems in Cleveland, and I feel
Ooh.
like you would have a bunch.
Oh my God, I really should. I've been here my whole life, but I also unfortunately am fairly just I always joke I'm just I'm just in the suburbs. Like, oh, it's the worst. I never like lived in downtown Cleveland, which is like, gosh, let me think. Wow, I hate that I'm not, well, nope, that's self-serving. Hold on, let me not give that one. Hold on.
You could do some self-serving ones.
Well, I'm no longer an owner of the Yard on Third, but that's a really fun outdoor food truck concept in downtown Willoughby. So for people that are on the east side, and I know there's a couple other food truck parks in the area as well on the west side that are really, really fun. That's a fun kind of summery Cleveland thing. We're big on, the WNBA.
What's your
The WNBA is coming to
Oh.
Cleveland. That's my soon to be hidden gem. I'm a Caitlin Clark fan, but I'm also an Angel Reese fan, all women's basketball fan, and WNBA is coming to Cleveland. I'm very excited about that. That'll be my hidden gem when we talk again in 2030. I've already put down my deposit on tickets. Love women's sports, but sorry, go ahead.
No, perfect. I look forward to that conversation. Maybe what's your favorite thing in Willoughby?
I love how quaint downtown
I love that
Willoughby
this is the hardest question.
I know. I'm like, why? You don't understand what a loser I am. I barely leave if I'm at my businesses or my house, like it's a challenge. I need to be more fun. Honestly, though, if you are not familiar, depending on where listeners are from, if you're not familiar with downtown Willoughby, it is such a gem. It is a lovely little spot of all local owners. There's very few if any franchise businesses or national concepts in the square. Michael's Bake Shop is down there. Really fun owners over there. Some really great coffee shops, cute ice cream shops, some cute retail shops. I really enjoy, especially when the weather is nice, just like walking the downtown Willoughby Strip. If you enjoy getting a few cocktails, there's plenty of options for that. So that is kind of, because I'm from the east side, I forget that like a lot of people, are cooler than us and live on the west side. And so they don't know probably about downtown Willoughby, but it is a very cute, quaint. They do farmers markets in the summer. So that can be my hidden gem is if you have not been to downtown Willoughby, come out for a day, spend a day. It's super cute. Lots of cute shops, lots of cute restaurants, and local owners to support.
If folks had anything they wanted to follow up with you about, learn more about franchising or any of your businesses, where would you point them?
For franchise consulting, I have a website, which is thefranspot.com. My email, Anna@thefranspot.com. They can reach out to me on LinkedIn, Anna Day with an E, D-E-Y. Facebook, Instagram, you name it. My Instagram is Anna Day RAR, which is very
nice.
RAR. RAR is actually like my word. It's like something I started like 20 years ago, and I frankly have very much should have outgrown it by this point, but here I am still like it's my like accolade. Like you do something good, I'm like RAR. So anyways, Anna Day RAR on Instagram. I really do love the entrepreneurial community in Northeast Ohio. And so regardless of whether it be about franchising specifically, if I can be a resource, especially to young people, I'm happy to do so.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much, Anna. I really enjoyed this.
Oh, good. Thanks for hanging out with me, Jeff.
That's all for this week. Thank you for listening. We'd love to hear your thoughts on today's show. So if you have any feedback, please send over an email to jeffrey@layoftheland.fm or find us on Twitter @podlayoftheland or @sternfa, JEFE. If you or someone you know would make a good guest for our show, please reach out as well and let us know. And if you enjoy the podcast, please subscribe and leave a review on iTunes or on your preferred podcast player. Your support goes a long way to help us spread the word and continue to bring the Cleveland founders and builders we love having on the show. We'll be back here next week at the same time to map more of the land. The Lay of the Land podcast was developed in collaboration with the Up Company LLC. At the time of this recording, unless otherwise indicated, we do not own equity or other financial interests in the company which appear on this show. All opinions expressed by podcast participants are solely their own and do not reflect the opinions of any entity which employs us. This podcast is for informational purposes only and should not be relied upon as a basis for investment decisions. Thank you for listening, and we'll talk to you next week.